Welcome back to AM Northwest. Female runners have overcome obstacles and doubt since the sport began. And our next guest says we're only just beginning to figure out what they're capable of. We welcome the author of Better, Faster, Farther, How Running Changed Everything We Know About Women, Maggie Mertens. Good to have you with us, Maggie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fascinating history story. Fascinating. Where did this come from for you?
Oh, years of journalism and writing about women athletes. And, you know, the reason that I started writing about women athletes was I saw that, you know, there was a gender equality story there that, you know, journalism was covering women CEOs being mistreated or not being paid as well. But athletes wasn't, you know, seeming on the same level.
Right.
And so that's, you know, where I first started writing about it. And the reaction that I would get was often, you know, this is a story about biology. This is a story about how women just aren't as good and they're not going to be as good. And so that just made me really want to dig into where do these ideas come from?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, women started running, as you point out in your book, before we even realized that they were. Because for the longest time, women weren't allowed to, like in the Boston Marathon, weren't allowed to run in it.
Yeah.
So the very first woman, tell me about the very first woman.
To run the marathon?
Yeah.
So in 1896, they started the Olympics, the modern Olympic Games, but women weren't invited. Women weren't part of it. And that's when the marathon first started. That was the first ever running of a marathon as we know it today. And a woman showed up and she wanted to run it. She'd been told, like, this might be a good opportunity for you.
This was in Greece, right?
This was in Greece. Her name was Stamata Ravithi, and she was a poor woman. She kind of wanted a little bit more, maybe a better station in life. She thought maybe if I do this, someone will give me some money or a job. And they said, okay, come tomorrow. The men are going to run today, but the women will run tomorrow. And of course, there were no other women. So she showed up, and there were no other women there, but she ran it anyway. She ran the race. So the day after the men ran that first Olympic marathon, Stamata Ravithi ran it. She had evidence. There were Greek newspaper accounts about it. But that's basically as far as the story went. Nobody really knew about it until much later, when some Olympic historians started to put that story together and found some of these newspaper accounts, translated them, and figured out that, oh, 1896, a woman ran the marathon, and yet we didn't get an Olympic women's marathon until 1984.
Why were women not allowed to run in marathons, say?
There was a lot of concern, medical concern. People were claiming that there would be reproductive
issues,
harm, if women ran especially too far. That was a big concern. So in the first year that women were finally allowed into track in the Olympics in 1928, you know, those were kept to very short distances, and they kind of kept getting shorter. There was an 800-meter race in 1928, and they decided that was too long. So,
well, then the Catherine Switzer, who ran the Boston Marathon in '67, no women had been allowed to run the marathon.
Yeah, no women were allowed in most marathons. There were some marathons on the West Coast that allowed women in, just kind of without telling the federations that they were doing it. But yeah, and that was a little bit later in the 70s. But in the 60s, there were a couple women who were kind of sneaking into Boston, basically, and running it, but without registering. And Catherine Switzer was one of the first. She actually did register, and that's that iconic photo that you've seen of, like, this woman running the marathon and being physically pushed out. And what was happening there was the race director was actually trying to get her number, because he felt that it wasn't proper for a woman to be running with a number, because women weren't technically allowed, based on the National Federation and the International Federation of Racing, to run a race this distance.
Yeah, let's talk about how racism also impacted as well. So is it Tidy Pickett?
Yeah, Tidy Pickett.
Yeah, tell me about her.
Yeah, so Tidy Pickett and Louise Stokes were the first two black women to make the Olympic track and field teams, and they were named to the teams in 1932, both as members of the relay race, the 4x100, but neither of them were actually chosen to run in the end. So they made the Olympic team, they went to the Olympics, and then they didn't run. The following Olympics in '36, Tidy Pickett qualified in several events, and so this was a really huge deal. Again, they were only 2 black women on this Olympic track and field team. The rest were white. And again, they they were kind of nervous about going and whether they would be allowed to participate once they got there. Tidy was allowed to participate, but she was her first race was one of the hurdles events, and she actually hit a hurdle with her foot and broke her foot.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh no.
And so she wasn't able to actually, you know, finish out that event or run on the relay team. And so that was a big bummer, but she was the first Black American woman to appear in the Olympic Games.
I feel like Oregon, especially Eugene, is really well known for female runners.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about Mary Decker.
Yeah, Mary Decker was just an incredible runner. She came onto the scene very early. She kind of coincided with this boom in running, road racing, and in, you know, kind of a pre-Title IX world. And she just really...
We forget how important Title IX was.
Yes.
Yeah, we forget that. Okay.
Exactly. But she really stumbled on running. She, you know, she ran her first marathon. I think she was 11 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And she just kind of discovered that she was extremely talented.
Yeah.
She was an extremely talented middle distance and long distance racer. And she was essentially professionalized from that moment. You know, she really raced and raced and raced, but she had a lot of injuries. You know, she was kind of beleaguered by injury.
Wow.
Yeah.
In 2007, a woman who had just had a baby, like what, 9 months before, right? She won the New York City Marathon, and then there was a lot of controversy about that. Here she is with her baby right after the marathon. Tell me more.
Yeah, that's Paula Radcliffe. So she was the world's best women's marathoner. She had set the world record for the women's marathon. And then, she announced that she was pregnant. And at that time, you know, that was really akin to a retirement announcement. You know, most women athletes, especially women runners, would wait until their careers were done to have a child. And she said, no, I'm going to keep racing. And she actually raced through her pregnancy. Even her doctor was like very nervous about this. You know, she went in for like regular ultrasounds, all of that. Her baby was fine and healthy. And she actually came back, and 9 months after her baby was born, she won the New York City Marathon.
Isn't that quickly though, the woman getting a lot of press right now is Sha'Carri.
Yes.
Sha'Carri Richardson. She's amazing, and she's defying. There's something about the personality of a strong female runner, which is she's going to do it regardless, right?
Yes, I love her story. Sha'Carri is just iconic right now. You know, she had such a tragic incident at the last Olympic trials where she won the 100 meters and was headed to Tokyo, but then ended up being disqualified because they found THC in her drug sample, which, you know, I think if anyone can run that fast on THC,
more power to you.
Exactly.
More power to you. And also just her personality, her hair, the nails, the makeup, all of that is so wild. You have a book event tonight at Powell's, which is very exciting. So I want to tell everyone, if you would like to check it out, it's tonight at 7 o'clock at Powell's on West Burnside in Portland. We'll put the information for you on our website at k2.com. The book, again, is titled Better, Faster, Farther. Maggie Mertens, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was
bet.
great.
All right, we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.